Today's project is this buffet that I won at an auction for a grand total of $7.41. I totally forgot I had made a bid on this until I got the email saying, congratulations, you won. But obviously nobody else wanted it. But it has a lot of damage on the top. I think somebody had candles and the wax is just all over the top, so I don't even know how much of it is salvageable. When I picked it up from the house, I opened up one of the drawers and found out it's a Drexel. So super excited. They are excellent quality. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with it yet. Am I going to strip it to raw? Am I going to paint it? I don't know yet. I just need to assess the damage. So I'm going to start with a really good clean and I'm going to strip the top and then we're going to see what I'm going to do. Let's go.
I'm going to start with a really good clean. So I have to start with my shop vac. This thing was really filthy. So I'll start with my shop vac, then I'll go in with a degreaser. I am going to take all of the hardware off and then I'm going to take the doors off. And so I know some people refinish with doors in. I just find that I get a cleaner refinish when I take the doors off. Sometimes reattaching vintage hinges is difficult, but over the course of the years, I've figured it out and it's not that hard. And I just think it provides a cleaner finish when you can go ahead and take all of the doors off and get it really cleaned up. So I'm going to start on the top. You can see there's melted wax on the top. I'm just going to start with my 5-in-1 tool and I'm just going to see what kind of damage is underneath all of this area.
So I was working on the top and the candle wax that they had on the top has completely destroyed the veneer. So I have chipped it all up because it was loose and there's like this pressed board underneath. So I'm not really sure how I'm going to fix this yet. I've got a couple ideas, but let me show you the damage. Okay, here's the damage. This is where the candle wax had eaten away at the veneer and I chipped it off and there's all of this pressed board underneath, so it's not solid wood. So I got to figure out how I am going to fix this. Yikes.
I'm going to continue with the cleaning. I am using Awesome, which is a great little degreaser. I'm going to dilute it in some hot water and I'm just going to use microfiber rags and I'm just going to go through and I'm going to give it a really good sanitation.
So I flipped it over and the base is all just rotted and gross. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unscrew it and I'm going to take it off. It's got a solid wood base and I'm just going to attach legs to it, lift it up, get rid of the plinth.
I've cleaned the top and sanded it down, and now I'm going to start the fill process with Bondo. It's a two-part wood filling system. It has the putty and it has a hardener, and I'm just going to mix it together in some small batches and start filling in that area. So now I'm going to do round 2. Honestly, Bondo is hard to spread. I think I need a wider spreader, something that you would use when you're doing drywall work. And I think that would help me get a nice smoother finish. I still have a few shallow areas that need to be filled, so I'm going to switch to Bondo's glazing putty, and I'm just going to fill those shallower areas in. I'm going to do a nice scuff sand on the whole body, and then if there's any areas that need to be filled in, I'll fill those in with the glazing Bondo as well. But I am going to paint out the body, so I want to make sure I have really good adhesion. I have a lot of little molding areas on the doors, and so I have given it a scuff sand, but I like to go through with liquid sandpaper. It's kind of like my extra insurance, and it just kind of etches up any of those areas that I might have missed with my sandpaper. It doesn't necessarily take the place of sandpaper, but it just kind of helps me make sure that I have reached all of those areas and make sure I have really good adhesion with my paint and primer. My plan is to paint the front of the doors, but then I'm just going to tone the back of the doors with some gel stain. So I don't need to paint the whole thing. I want to have a nice clean paint line. So I'm just going to tape it off, so that way I'm not going to have to paint the whole thing, but I want a nice clean line when I paint. I'm going to tape off and make sure I put some paper over the areas that I do not want paint to get to. So that's the final prep before I'm ready to prime. I'm using Ben's 123 water-based primer. I'll do one coat, give it a light sand, dust it off, and I'll come back and do a second coat before I move on to paint. To clean the hardware, I just bring some water to a boil, add some white vinegar, and then I'm going to put all my hardware in there, and I'm just going to let it set at least overnight, and then that way it kind of loosens up some of that grime that's on there, and then I'll get it polished up. This is my new sprayer. This is the Erlex 5700, and it's a turbine sprayer, and it's the first time I've used it on this particular project. It worked fabulous. It really gave a beautiful finish.
Okay, now I'm ready to work on the base. I'm going to be adding legs. I found these legs. They're pretty traditional, which I think fit the buffet really well. And you screw down into, create a hole, and then this little piece goes right into the hole, secure it down, and then the legs just screw right on. So I will probably treat these the same way as I do the top, and so I'm at least going to place them. I'm trying to determine if I need a back support or not. I don't have the width in the back with the wood in order to attach these, so I may just have to attach a block of wood to support the back. So I'm at least going to get the holes drilled and go from there.
So I had to determine where I wanted to put the legs. I didn't want them overhanging over that trim. So I'm just trying to kind of figure out where I want it. And then I'll go ahead and measure it. And then I'll just put like a little, I'm going to drill like a little pilot hole. That way I know where I'm going to drill it. Now I've got my drill bit on, I'm going to drill a hole, and then that metal piece is going to fit down in there. Now I just drill a few pilot holes, and then I screw it in, and then you just simply screw on the furniture legs.
Today is veneer day. I picked up this veneer from my local woodcraft. It's a walnut, and I've actually never totally done a big veneer piece like this ever. So I looked up a few YouTube videos. There's actually not a lot out there specifically for like a full, dresser, but I did find one that I felt was pretty similar. And so based on that recommendation, and actually the representative there at Woodcraft, he recommended the technique where you apply the wood glue to the back of the veneer and you apply it to the dresser, and then just obviously separately, and then you let them dry about 30 to 40 minutes until it's almost dry, and then you go ahead and put it on, cover it with a sheet, apply a dry iron, and that's supposed to reactivate the glue, and then it will produce a really strong bond. So that's the method I'm going to do. I'm going to try, and then I'm going to let it set overnight and then come back and trim it up after that. So I've never done this. We'll see how it goes. Let's try it. I got the veneer trimmed. I don't think I did an amazing job my first time, but the trimmer they recommended at the store did not work for me. I could never figure it out. It says it's a laminate trimmer. It should have worked for veneer. I don't know what I was doing wrong. So in the end, I ended up using a razor blade. Should have been straightforward, yeah, go on an angle, but my profile wasn't just like a, 90 degree. It was flat, it had a tiny drop, and then it had a curve. So it was a little hard to go on an angle. So what I had to do is I had to trim it back pretty close with my razor blade, and then I went in with a straight edge with my razor blade and I trimmed it from there. So not horrible. It looks way better than it did, obviously, but I will obviously get a better tool next time. But I figure it's a win, and I only cut myself once. So there you go. So now everything is glued down and I sanded, and I'm actually really pleased with how it turned out. I know it's not perfect, but for my first attempt, I'm really pleased with it. Overall, really good. So now I just need to decide how I'm going to finish the top.
For the interior, I'm just going to do a little toning. So what I'll do is I will just give it a nice little scuff sand, clean it with a 50-50 mixture of denatured alcohol and water, and then I'm just going to tone it with some gel stain. And then I'll come back and seal it with a hard wax oil. It's just going to kind of refresh it. It doesn't really need to be refinished. I just kind of want to jazz it up a little bit. I've polished the hardware and now I'm just going to seal it with some lacquer. sometimes hinge day can be a frustrating day. So here you can see I'm trying to reattach one of the hinges and it won't. There's nothing to grab underneath it. The hole is just too big. So what you can do is you can just take some toothpicks. It just needs some additional wood there so that the screw has something to grab. So I just put some toothpick in there, break it off, and then that does the trick. I've got some extra wood down there for the screw to hold onto. So you just have to fill up that extra large cavity that has been created over the years. And probably when people open the door and they tug on it, it just kind of creates those extra give in the hardware holes. And so those toothpicks are really handy to have. I'm trying to color match the edge of the dresser to the new wood. So it's different. It's a different wood species. So I wet down the veneer and I'm trying to get it to match. So I added a little bit of the antique walnut and then I came back with a little bit of gray and the weathered oak. And that really helped blend in the two different types of wood. Now I'm going to seal it with some Polywax hard wax oil.
So I'm super disappointed this morning. I sealed the veneer last night and I went to check on it about an hour later and it had lifted in a few areas. So I kind of freaked out, got my iron out, ironed it back down, and then I talked to my husband, my business consultant, and his concern is that, okay, it's fine right now, but when you go to sell it, what if the new buyer puts something wet on it and it lifts on them, which would be terrible. That would be horrible. I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to have to go to plan B. I'm super disappointed. I thought it worked and super humbled. I was like, great, now I got to go on YouTube and tell people my flop. But I always tell people I'm going to give you my flips and I'm going to tell you my flops. I'm going to show you my mistakes. And so I have obviously done something wrong. I've either used the wrong glue, I've put it on wrong, something happened in my process. And so I'm going to do some more research and try to figure out what I did wrong. But I'll try it again at some point. But for right now, I'm going to move on to plan B. So here we go.
Tell you what, this is a pretty painful process, so very humbling. Obviously, I think in hindsight, I just should have used peel and stick. I think it would have been a lot easier. Some of my friends reached out to me on Instagram and said, oh yeah, girl, you just need to use the peel and stick. It's so much easier. So next time, that's what I will be using. So I was so close, but obviously I put either the wrong glue on or a combination of either the wrong glue and or the way that I put it on. So now I'm just going to decide I'm just going to fill it in and I'm going to paint it. So I'm going to start with Bondo again. I'm going to go through and try to do a really good fill on the entire piece. Now, Bondo is really hard. You can see how many holes I had there. I probably, again, should have had like a trowel or something, because the Bondo created so many more areas that needed to be filled. And so I have a couple rounds of Bondo, and then I used the glazing putty, and then I decided, let's go ahead and prime it. And that's going to really show me where I need to do some additional fill. I wasn't happy with it, so I decided to try some of the Derwent's water putty. Now, I've used it before, but honestly, it didn't work great in this application. It might have been just I didn't smooth it out enough, but honestly, I did it, and then I ended up sanding most of it off. It just wasn't smooth enough. So I had a couple fails. The Bondo works great. It's just I really need to figure out how to give it, really smooth it out. I need a tool that will really smooth it out better for me. You can see I'm using like a paintbrush to kind of smooth it out. Well, that just created ridges. And so I was like, oh my gosh. So I ended up just sanding most of that off. And then I thought, okay, well, I'll try some Aqua Coat, because I've used that before. I think the Aqua Coat works better on wood grain, but I'd heard good things about DAP wood filler. So I thought, okay, I'm going to try this. And so you can take it, you can use it right out of the tube, or you can dilute it with some water and use it as a grain filler. So I decided I was going to make it kind of pasty and apply it. And honestly, it was my favorite. And so I just applied it. It was really easy to use. It was really easy to sand. And it's really, I think, obviously the combination of the Bondo as my first layer, and then I think the DAP over that was the key to getting a really good finish. And then I was able to just go ahead and prime over it and start painting. I finally got to a point where I was ready to go ahead and paint. So I'm using the same color that I used on the body. This is Anew Gray by Sherwin. It's a beautiful kind of a warm putty color. And I sprayed it on and provided a beautiful finish. I came back later and I really still felt like I had some areas that I needed to have filled in. So I used the DAP a few more times and filled in some areas, and just to get it as smooth as possible. I didn't want to load up my sprayer again, so I'm just going to use this roller to go ahead and finish out the top. You can get a really good finish with a roller. I just make sure that it's a very fine nap, and then you can get a really good finish. So just apply your paint, and then at the end, you're going to come back with really long strokes. You're going to even everything out. I'm going to go ahead and refresh the drawers with some Danish oil and just kind of freshen those up a little bit too. Okay, let's look back at the before. This was a beast. My goodness. I was bragging about how I got this one for $7, but man, you saw the work I had to put into this thing. At one point, I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but it was good quality. You know, it's a Drexel. I mean, this thing is solid wood, of course, except the top, but that top was really, the body was pretty good, but it's that top that gave me so many problems. But here's the final product. Can you believe it? It turned out so good. that top turned out really good. I tried and tried. I mean, is it absolutely 100% perfect? No. But oh my goodness, considering where we started, I was super pleased. And so I think putting additional legs on it really helped, kind of elevating it. I think they kind of, it's a nod to the traditional look of the whole piece. So much storage. I love all of the lines on it. So enjoy some of these videos and I'll come back at the end. I ended up selling it locally. I listed it for $700. I probably could have sold it, 15 times over. I had that many people waiting for it. So it was popular. This is a popular color. This is a new gray. So if you're looking for a nice neutral, I think this is it. So did you enjoy this one? Tell me what you think. Thanks for watching.